Shoujo Tsubaki, which I'll be referring to as Midori, is one of the most infamous anime films of all time, being banned in most of the countries around the world, including the United States. This is a major warning for the rest of the video. If you're a kid who somehow stumbled on the video, please click off. You've been warned, so enjoy the rest of the video. Our story starts on January 28th, 1956, in Nagasaki, Japan, the day Suehiro Maruo was born. Suehiro Maruo is the creator of Midori and other equally disturbing works. Not much is known about his early years. The earliest confirmed record of him was his graduation from junior high school and subsequent dropout of senior high school. After his dropout, he submitted a manga to Weekly Shonen Jump, but was dropped as being too graphic. After his manga was not approved, Maruo took a break from pursuing manga as a career, until November 1980, when Maruo was able to become an artist for Ribbon no Kishi, one of Osamu Tezuka's works, who is most famous for his creation, Astro Boy. After 2 years, Maruo's first standalone piece was released, Barairo no Kaibutsu, meaning rose-colored monster in English. Being released in 1982, you can already see the disturbing mix of torture and abuse being played into the horror of his manga. It's in this anthology that we get the story, The Secret and Sad Story of the Camellia Girl. This story is a short, incomplete version of the future story, Midori. The rest of the stories in this anthology combine to be one of the most disturbing and horrific things I've ever seen. Major warning if you're seeking to read it. Maruo's goal with his stories is to be disturbing and scary, which he succeeds in doing, though I think his works are disliked because people have a fixed definition of horror. When you think of horror, people think of monsters and jump scares. While that is horror, horror encompasses more than just that. Horror is defined as an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. Maruo especially uses the last two throughout his works to make them truly horrific. When reading his works, you'll be scared, but because of the outlandish nature of the fiction he creates, you'll most likely feel shock and disgust. After the anthology's release, Maruo saw potential in his story, The Secret and the Sad Story of the Camellia Girl. And so, from August 1983 to July 1984, Midori was serialized in the Sennin magazine Garo. It's here where we go 8 years in the future to a man named Hiroshi Harada. Like Maruo, not much is known about Harada's early life. Born in 1962 and growing up being bullied, his early years weren't favorable. But in 1976, he started his career as an entertainer. After working on a few minor films, an opportunity came to him in 1987. Harada started reaching out to studios for assistance in creating an anime adaptation of Midori. Though unsurprisingly, due to the horrific nature of the manga and graphic violence against children seen in it, no studio wanted to be a part of it. Meaning for the next 5 years, Harada was self-funding and basically single-handedly created the anime adaptation for Midori. Harada directed, animated, wrote the storyboard, and wrote the screenplay for the anime. And when the anime was ready for release, Harada released it only to underground live watch parties, wanting to hold true to the live performance theme of the manga. Most screenings involved in-person casts and crews to supplement the anime. The film had a small cult following through the years, but it truly didn't catch on until the time of the internet. People online shared their experience with the film, causing a bigger spotlight on it, and more people seeking it out. Since then, both Maruo and Harada have moved on. Harada still works in the film industry, and Maruo left the manga scene in 2008. Though he's gone, he left a major impact on the horror media and wider manga and anime community as a whole. That ends the background for Midori. Trigger warning for the plot review coming up. Midori starts off with a preview of the human circus, known as the Freak Show. We see grotesque monsters, a man with no limbs, a man with no arms but amazing foot control, a woman who uses snakes to do not nice things, and many other horrific monsters. Then we cut to a bustling city and to Midori Tsubaki, a 12-year-old girl with an absent father and a sick mother, who drops out of school to help make ends meet. She works selling camellia flowers, when one day she meets a man who offers her assistance if she ever needs it. That night she goes home to her sick mother, and after Midori talks to her and hears no response, she pulls back the covers to see her deceased mother, with rats picking at her corpse. After this horrific scene, Midori had nothing left, and with the last thing she could do, she goes to the address the man gave her. She goes to the circus and is met with a few of the monsters, to which she is and vows that her life is hell and that she wants to end it all. She becomes stuck in this hell. Everywhere she turns, the circus tent is full of depraved monsters. We cut to another day. Midori is surprisingly happy. Even after all that, there is something that can bring her joy. 3 dogs that she found and started caring for. After playing with the dogs, she makes her way back to the tent, but an antagonist of the series, Kanabun, sees Midori's happiness and wants to stop it. Kanabun gruesomely kills all 3 puppies. In the next scene, Kanabun brings back the meat with her and serves it to everyone in the camp in the form of a stew. It's here where Midori breaks down truly for the first time. From here on, Midori makes attempts to escape this hell, though all of her attempts are futile. Eventually, the circus falls on hard times, but there is hope. A man comes to rejuvenate the circus, and it's revealed that it's a dwarf man in a glass bottle. It's clear that he has magical powers, being able to fit through impossible spaces. He announces his name is Wonder Masamitsu. But just when things started looking up, Masamitsu also starts preying on Midori. Though because of her poor mental state, Midori sees Masamitsu as her savior and lets herself be taken advantage of. Masamitsu's first show is a success. He brings out Midori as his assistant, though this brings jealousy to the rest of the crew members. Midori and Masamitsu grow closer, getting pictures taken together and eating together outside of the circus. Back at the tent, Masamitsu starts to take control. He starts ordering around others and even takes over the money management. It's here where Midori has also started to refer to Masamitsu as her husband. After Masamitsu takes over, Midori is sitting outside one day when a circus member approaches her, Muchisute. He professes her love for her, but as he walks back to the tent, Masamitsu turns the ground to quicksand and buries him alive. But Muchisute hallucinated all of it. Midori saw all of this, and it makes her afraid of Masamitsu. Later, Masamitsu starts showing his possessive nature even more. When Midori is offered a better life, he literally rips up her ticket to leave, breaking a mirror on Midori's head and locking her in a jar. Though once again, it's just a hallucination induced from Masamitsu. So Masamitsu is forced to perform by himself, and after an audience member calls him Shorty, rage consumes him, and he shows his true powers. Every audience member's body contorts and deforms to where they aren't even human anymore. Masamitsu does this by just thinking. The authorities rush to the scene only to find all the bodies have returned to the original states, meaning Masamitsu can reverse death. It's after this incident that Masamitsu quits the circus and convinces Midori to go with him. Masamitsu's departure from the freak show causes the whole thing to collapse. The rest of the talent start to pack their things. The two of them make their leave, and Masamitsu goes into town to get food for the trip. But on the way back to Midori, a rogue thief on a murder spree takes him out. After Masamitsu's absence, Midori runs into town, only to not find Masamitsu. It's here where the ending is up to debate. It isn't clear what happens, but I think I can explain it, so bear with me. Midori starts running around, and she sees a guy walking who sneezes. And then she continues running around to look for Masamitsu until she comes to the same spot and sees the same man walking who once again sneezes. She does this one more time and the same thing happens. This can mean a few things. Either she's hallucinating, she's succumbing to insanity, or she's in some sort of time loop. Since this movie is insane, I wouldn't doubt that it's a time loop, but I believe it's her succumbing to insanity and a hallucination. The next scene, she hallucinates the circus crew laughing at her, and she charges at them, wishing for all of them to die. It's here where she fights through all the people who have wronged her at the circus. This is Midori metaphorically coming to terms with what happened to her. But after she fights through everyone and relives her terrible memories, everything stops. Midori is standing in a field of white. There's nothing. The only sound we can hear is her cries as the screen fades. Throughout the story, we can assume that Midori has Stockholm Syndrome. She wants to leave, but stays at the circus. It's especially clear when Masamitsu arrives, and she clings to him after he shows the tiniest piece of affection. I think this is what the scene shows. She went to the circus because she had no one. She hated the circus, but at least it was something to keep her going. Now, without the circus and Masamitsu, she's left with nothing. She's just a 12-year-old girl who has gone through one of the worst things any person can go through. And so, she cries, either ending her own life or coming to terms with what happened and pushing through. That's how it ends. No closure, nothing. Just Midori crying away in a void of white. So why? Why was this film made? I think there are a few reasons, but the most accepted, and the answer that makes the most sense to me, is that Midori is a commentary. It's done in an untasteful way, but it's realistic and shows a side of the world that people want to ignore, which this film sheds some light on, but once again, it's done in a horrible way, but a way nonetheless. After that, most of you made your mind up on the story, and I'll admit it's a rough watch. So what are my thoughts? Where do I even begin? I will say that the film and manga achieve their goal of being disturbing. After watching it, I'm left empty. I've seen it 3 times now, and each time I can't help but feel gross, like I need to take a shower. This is the only piece of fiction that has done that to me. Aside from that, Midori is bad, plain and simple. The whole plot is about a young girl's physical and mental abuse at the hands of monsters. My anime list has an average rating of 4.73, which I think is deserved. I usually rate anime on 3 categories: story, animation, and music. So for story, while there is a story, it's not enjoyable. I'll give it a 2. Animation, for being done by basically one man, I'll give it a 3. Music is actually pretty good. Throughout, it's used well. And the ending scene in particular, the music goes perfectly with her descent into insanity, and how it cuts off, leaving us with nothing, is great. I'll give it a 6. So after rounding, I'll give Midori a 4 out of 10. I'm gonna end this video off by saying please do not watch this. It's bad, and depending on when or who watches it, it can be pretty traumatic. But anyway, this has been ZJ Anime. I'm going to bed.